Hey there, it's Attorney Matthew Hill here with Kerry Baker. We're at another live stream Q&A session with all you guys. Just looking to hopefully answer some questions from the chat box and get some good I guess get your claims going forward. It has been a while since I've been here, and I've been excited to get back and to get talking with you. Kerry's thankfully held down the fort for me, and Kerry, I'm very appreciative of that. I don't know if he had that pretty of a haircut this whole time, but he usually doesn't look that groomed. So I'm thankful for him doing that as well. All right, let's get rolling here. So the first question, Radio Killer, you're number one. All right, I got to shout you out. It looks like Doji 684 was just behind you, but somehow you got it. Railroad Retired. I still never say your name right, sir, but a client of ours. Good afternoon, and thanks again for you guys being on my half. We're here to help you all, and that's what we love to do. So let's see. We got Sonia is asking, how do I get my C&P results? Kerry, what's the fastest way to do that?
If you're, well, it depends. Are you represented by somebody? Are you doing this on your own? If you're represented by somebody, it's probably a lot easier if they have BBMS access to go in, download the C&P exams, and email them to you. If you don't have a representative, then you're going to have to ask for a copy from VA. The medical center is probably not going to give you a copy. Odds are it was done by a contractor anyway. So you're going to have to get a copy from VA or BBA directly, and that it could take a while.
Yeah. Let's see here, and I mean, I think the VSOs, even if you don't have a rep, if you're not represented, it's easy to go into one of the bigger VSOs and say, hey, will you represent me, frankly, just to get a copy of your C&P. Hopefully they'd be able to copy it off there, depending on which organization it is and how sophisticated they are. Keith Freeman is asking, is there going to be a disability increase, and how much? Keith, there's going to be an increase. And it's funny, they haven't announced anything yet. And the more and more we go into inflation, I mean, what do we still have 5 months till the new year, or 6, what do they start? Yeah, I guess they start January. I think this might be the biggest increase we've ever seen, honestly. I just how expensive everything's getting, and the government can't seem to get any of it under control. But it's all speculation right now. Kerry, I don't know, you got a speculator guess, or?
Well, I agree with you. We're going to get an increase. What people need to realize is that the VA compensation is tied to the CPI index. It's also tied to Social Security. And so whatever Social Security gets for an increase, which is based on the CPI index, it's usually the same thing goes for VA. And so the higher basically the cost of living going up, usually that's going to relate to a higher increase in VA compensation. And so since the cost of living is skyrocketing, are the biggest, last year was the biggest one we'd had. Well, from at least because 2007, 2008, they were kind of stagnant. And I know there's been nothing higher since then. So, probably going on 15, 20 years, that was the highest one. But this year could be, Matt's right, could be higher than last year.
Okay, AJ is asking, if permanent total, could VA ever request a re-examination in order to reduce? Gary, what's the myth of permanent total?
All right, yes. All right, if you allow them, I think we get into this every video. If you're permanent total and you don't have any claims pending and you don't need any claims pending, then don't make any claims pending. As long as you don't, and you're just going to get your regular VA healthcare and this and that, you're not opening claims, then VA should have no reason to bring you in for an examination. So in that light, you're pretty safe. But as soon as you file a claim, particularly if it's something that you're already getting benefits for, an increased rating, and you're already 100%, and that's not going to get you more than 100, which most of the time it won't, then you can either stay where you're at or go down. So you do the math.
Options, yeah.
Yeah, so don't mess with it. They won't call you in short of something like that.
And just remember, permanent total does not mean protected. The P means permanent, but it doesn't mean that they can't reduce you. You got 20 years to get protected, and at that point, short of fraud, they cannot reduce you. So I agree with everything Kerry just said there. Audrey, Mrs. Wilder, I'm now at 80%. Thanks for all the advice. Filed IU in April, still waiting on decision. Just found out have sleep apnea, trying to use secondary to anxiety. Helpful tips. So there's so much to unpack here to me, in that it's like, do you even need to start the sleep apnea? I mean, I guess you apply it. You're going to get denied for secondary to anxiety because they hate that. And you can fight back by getting an outside medical exam. So maybe you just put in that now and just see what they do with it. But if they give you IU, and the IU is based on your collective 80%, I would just let the sleep apnea die. That's my thought.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's not going to help you. It's not going to get you extra. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it quick, because the rules are going to change here soon on sleep apnea, where you probably can only get about 10% on most cases. But if you're at a TDIU, yeah, I wouldn't mess with it.
Parsons, I had horrible C&P exam today. Examiner did not even have all the information, including diagnosis. What do I do? Well, first of all, Parsons, I just want to say I would be extremely frustrated with RU, and I'm sorry you had to go through that, because it takes forever just to get the VA to a chance to actually get your C&P exam, get your medical story told, and then you get somebody who just screws it up like that. So that's awful. Kerry, I'll go first, and this could be maybe a difference of opinion on strategy, but what I would look to do is see what do they say. Maybe they come back and they're so embarrassed that they actually give you the favorable opinion from the medical side, and you just go with it and it works. If they come back and they give you a negative opinion, deny you, I would write a letter saying this person did not have this evidence. They did not know this. They didn't know the diagnosis is just all through my records, and I would ask for a new opinion under failure to duty to assist. I would do this through the VA's HLR, higher level review system, so that way it goes up quickly. They look at that and they think if there's a duty to assist error, then they send it back down for a new exam. Kerry, you got any thoughts on a different approach on that, or?
Not really. There's probably no bigger pet peeve of mine than bad VA exams, and I've harped on them forever. So I'm with you 100% there. Don't assume though it's bad till you see a copy of it. It might have went bad in the exam, and sometimes, most of the time, that probably correlates to a bad result. But it doesn't always. You might actually have a favorable exam if you looked at the results of it, which means you need a copy of the C&P exam. If that's the case, then you can kind of gauge what your action should be. If it's great, even though it didn't go well, you might be in the clear. Otherwise, just in hindsight, it's probably too late for this now, but I tell everyone, if they're worried about that, when you go to your C&P exams, take a look around. What kind of place is it? Is it an insurance hack? Is it an actual clinic? Is it in a strip mall? But we've heard tons and tons of various stories. I'd take a look at the clock before you go in. What time is it? Immediately look at the clock when you come out. Did it last 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour? Mark that down, and then sit down before you go anywhere and jot down as many notes as you can remember about the exam while it's fresh in your mind. Did they let you elaborate? Did you ask questions that they couldn't answer? Did they just read down the list? Were there any comments that, we've heard it at all. How many times I've heard a vet tell me that, I went to my exam and the first thing the examiner said was, well, I guess you're here to get some money. Write that down, because all that helps you rebut that examination if you end up having to. And the best way to do it is while it's fresh in your mind. We can take something like that and really hammer an examination. It has to be done in the appellate world, but that's just the way it is. So that's probably about all I had to add to that.
And I, what Kerry said, as far as, hey, you're here just to get money. Well, yeah, you're here to get the compensation entitled to you for you being, a part of our military and representing us. Congress wrote statutes for that. That one line in particular really goes to me, because they're trying to shame veterans, to not get the benefits they deserve. So Kerry and I have similar thoughts on that. And usually we use 4-letter words, but I've been told by my daughter I got to clean up my mouth. So we'll just go with me. But we both vehemently dislike bad opinions in insurance offices or wherever they strip malls. So.
And I've been told by Matt many times I could clean up my mouth.
That's saying something coming from me. All right, Kenneth Smith, good afternoon. Can you speak to the VA giving compensation for chronic? Kenneth, I wonder if you got cut off there and didn't get all of your what you wanted to say. And could you maybe finish that or elaborate? And Ephraim will alert me to it, and I'll come back to that question. D. Smith Benjamin, why does it take so long to get my appeal to be seen by a judge? It has been since October 2020. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, that's where are they now? They say they're in September 19, supposedly getting these. They don't know what they're doing.
It's a wreck. It's an absolute wreck. The board tells us they don't know. I don't believe. I think they do know. It's just so bad they don't want to tell us. They have systems that help them know those things. And it depends on what kind of appeal you got. Is it a higher level? I mean, is it a direct review? Is it evidence submission? Is it hearing lane? Is it legacy? They all have different answers, and none of them are that good. I can elaborate more, but without knowing more specifics, it's hard to do that.
It's frustrating. Anthony Newell, why were Fort McClellan veterans taken out of the bill that Biden signed 3 weeks ago?
What bill did Biden sign 3 weeks ago?
I'm thinking that might be a reference to the PACT Act that the House had signed, and then the Senate did this weird thing where they voted, it was like 80 something to 13, where they passed it, but then the Senate threw they did all this crazy procedural stuff where they stopped it. So it looked like it was going to be signed, but it wasn't. I am not aware of something that actually went on Biden's desk that would have included Fort McClellan 3 weeks ago. I know that the PACT Act actually does talk about it, and what they talk about is getting more etiological studies done, which is not, I think, very helpful, considering we already have plenty of evidence out there to prove those vets are related. But that's actually, I don't know, Kerry.
Well, if the question is referring to the PACT Act, and I have to kind of assume too that it is, because that's the only thing that would have had something like Fort McClellan in there. First, you're right, that has not been on Biden's desk. It's kind of jammed up a little bit between the House and the Senate. We think it's going to pass. We can go into that in more detail if we want. But it wasn't taken out of the bill. Fort McClellan was not put in the bill, okay, other than the studies that they wanted. And I gotta hit a few folks here for the reason for that, because I had a lot to do with that bill, but not on the herbicide side of things. My involvement was mostly Gulf War, burn pits, to some extent Thailand, as far as historical purposes of that. But other organizations jumped on board when it finally looked like stuff was going to pass, and I'm adding them in here a little bit. And they wanted a lot of things added in there, and a lot of things dealing with herbicides, and that's why we have it now. If it passes, we'll have a presumption for Thailand. We'll have a presumption for things like Guam, the American Samoa, things like that. But the people that worked on that, they just weren't up to speed on Fort McClellan. Guam was more in the news than Fort McClellan. Just like before that, the blue water was more of a political issue and in the news more than Fort McClellan. when in reality, Fort McClellan is ground zero for herbicide use inside the United States. And no one will convince me anything different than that. It's just a matter of those that had the voice didn't also have the education on Fort McClellan. And I believe that because if they did, we would see it in there. But that's okay. We're fighting those cases. We've got the facts and the evidence on our side. VA's fighting against it real hard. That's fine. I'm confident that we're going to get movement on that one way or the other, but we're going to do it through most likely litigation rather than politics.
Yeah. And as far as all the facts and the research, and Kerry went up to the National Archives and did kind of found some smoking guns for Fort McClellan. That we have a video series on that, and I think there is a way to download all the evidence we have. Ephraim, if you wouldn't mind throwing that up there where it is, I'd appreciate it, just because we did hard work on that, and we realize anybody and everybody who was there needs access to that. So hopefully y'all can win, as everybody can win. Radio killer. But this must be back to the whatever it's called, the increase on the compensation for next year. He says not until October 13th when CPI is released. So maybe that's a big day to watch, guys, as far as what it prints on that day, and then we'll know. We won't know exactly what the increase is going to be, but we'll know, relatively what we're looking at. I will say they've been fudging with that some, government. I think that they're trying to show that it's lower when it's really out of control. Jason, did you hear about another attorney taking legal action with the VA? Jason, I have not. Is Kerry, is that?
I have heard that quite just in the past few days that another firm, one of they're good friends with us, Chisholm and Kilpatrick, is taking legal action against the VA for, and I'm a little light on the details here, on how VA is handling appeals. And the backlog of appeals, and the fact that appeals really aren't getting worked the way, one, they should, two, the way that, and consistent with the amount of employees VA has at the board, consistent with the amount of new employees VA has at the board. Now, as far as beyond that, what the details are and what they're challenging, I'm not 100% sure. They put out a video on it just a few days ago. And I ran across it and saw it, and I haven't had a chance to follow up on it, but it does seem like they are doing something, and hopefully they'll succeed.
Yeah, that would help everybody. It'd be great. Frank Lopez, when does the 10-year rule go into effect? The day of the rating, which was 2015, or when I got increased 2019? So we got to make sure we're talking about the same thing. 10-year rule applies to the service connection itself. And that is the day you first get service connected. If you're talking about the 20-year rule for the rating, then it would be the day you got that rating, right? So I don't know what your increased rating was, but it would not be, 2019 would be the date of that.
Yeah,
Travis, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say you have to be rated at or above a certain level consistently for 20 years. If there's a break in that, it breaks the protection. So you might be protected at, say, 10%, but not the increase to 50% you got a couple of years ago, right? For an example purposes.
Travis Vance, I was awarded 50% for sleep apnea in 2012, but the VA Veterans Affairs officer didn't tell me about dependents. I had a wife and 2 kids. Can I receive that payment back? Thank you. I think the presumption of regularity is going to mess this up, right? Because when you got that increase, you should have been sent a form for dependents. And if you look on the rating decision, it'll probably say somewhere on the back or on the bottom saying, attached to this is, I can't remember what the form's name is, but basically a dependent form. Even if it wasn't attached, the fact that they said it was attached means they would win in court, because the presumption of regularity is that the government does what they do on a regular basis. What they say they do, they do. It's the most absurd assumption I've ever heard in my life. It's one that they currently still have and they're winning on. But that's my thoughts. Kerry, I don't know if you see another way around that.
Just on those facts, yeah, probably not. Yeah, even if the forms 686C is the form that you'd file for the dependency. But even if it wasn't attached, if the notification letter generally has stock language in there alerting you that if you have dependents, you can submit for them. However, you if you ever get a new triggering event for dependency, all right, that happens to go back to that same date, then you have a way to get that resurrected and retroactively applied. So, for example, if you got another rating decision for anything that adds compensation to your benefit level, and it goes back to that date, there's case law come out a few years ago that said basically that reopens your window for dependents all the way back to there, as long as that that decision goes to that date. If it doesn't, it's only going to go back to the date of that decision. But don't let that stop you. Make sure you file for your dependency now, even if it doesn't go back, because they'll have something over you if you don't.
Right.
So you need to try to correct that on your end as soon as you realize it.
All right, JT, I'm 100% IU. Can my doctor do all exams, paperwork for ED? What forms? How much extra is that a month? Would it be a hassle? All right. So the first thing I would do when it comes to ED, erectile dysfunction, is that's a loss of use of organ is how they classify that. Okay, so you don't get an actual rating for that. You get a separate special monthly compensation K. What is it, Kerry? 120, 150 bucks a month or something like that.
Yeah, it's 125 to 150, somewhere around there, I think. Probably about 150.
So the first thing you need to do is go back and look and see on your rating decisions where you applied for ED, was it denied? Did they give you a 0% rating? And then if you have the code sheet, which is in the back, they usually do not send that to you. You got to actually FOIA it. Does it mention a special monthly compensate back there? Because if you already have special monthly compensation K for this, you are not going to get more benefits. And they make it very difficult to actually figure out what you have when it comes to an SMCK issue. So loss of use of organ is what you're looking for. If you were denied outright, can your doctor do all the exams? Sure. And you can put in a fully developed claim. Can they go ahead and get another exam? Yeah, that's their prerogative. So, is it worth the hassle? It's your decision. It's 120 something bucks a month. That goes a lot of way for some people. If that's not something you need, then I wouldn't do it. Kerry, you got other thoughts on that?
Not really. Nothing more than what you stated there.
Okay. Eric Seabury, this is the claim. It's good to see you again, Eric. This is the claim opened by the VA after finding a duty to assist error with higher level review, permanent and total review. Permanent and total review, huh? Have you heard of this before? Thanks. Kerry, permanent and total review.
I'm not sure what they're asking.
He's saying that they found a duty to assist. The claim was opened by the VA after finding a duty to assist error with HLR. So it's kind of what we talked about earlier. Higher level review found a duty to assist error. And then he's saying that permanent and total review, I guess is reviewing it. I don't understand. I've never seen that permanent total review as a.
It could be a few things. I mean, I think that the question might, and I'm reading between the lines here, might be stated a little incorrectly, that VA opened up a claim. If you had a higher level review pending and the higher level review found a duty to assist error, then they're not really opening up that claim. You appeal the decision. They agreed that they made a mistake and they're trying to correct that mistake. Now, in that process, if they're, I don't know, maybe you said it in the question, that if you're already 100% permanent total and they're doing that review, yeah, that would concern me. If you're 100% but not permanent, then they can do, in fact, they're going to do a review at some point or another, because anytime you're not permanent, because you can be permanent at 50% or 30 or whatever if it's a stagnant disability. So if you're 100% but not permanent, right, then yeah, they're going to do a review on you at some point, and if they decide that they don't need to review you anymore because everything's remained stagnant, you're still 100%, then they would typically make it permanent at some point. They might do that within a 5-year period or so of you getting 100%. But just they don't always make 100% permanent. So yeah, it might bring you in and do a review, and if they might call that a permanent total review. But how that plays into the HLR, that I'm not sure.
Okay, Shimp Howard, good to see you again. Denied secondary radiculopathy to cervical strain, but C&P examiner said my radiculopathy was caused by my degenerative disc disease and that it was part of the claim approved in 2020. I think this should be reversed. So was your, what I would want to know is if your degenerative disc disease was up in your cervical spine, and if it was, yeah, that could be a Q error. That was the only medical evidence there, because the VA adjudicator cannot override him or herself medical evidence. They have to get another medical opinion to do that.
Yeah, I'd make sure we're talking about apples and apples and not apples and oranges. So if you're service connected for a cervical spine problem and you have upper extremity radiculopathy, absolutely. And if they said it was related and the rater still denied it, you've got a problem there, and it's VA's fault. If you've got cervical degenerative disc disease and you've got lumbar radiculopathy, then I have to ask the questions: what's service connected? Is the neck service connected and the back, low back not? Because if the low back's not, and you have lumbar radiculopathy, they're not going to consider that secondary to the cervical spine. And I don't know the facts of the case, so that I've seen it like that a lot of times. Somebody would have a problem with their low back or their upper back, or maybe both. But only one is service connected. Then it's the radiculopathy that has to come from that portion that they should be compensating. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, a little known fact about Kerry: he's a juggler, but for some reason he can juggle apples and apples, but he can't juggle apples and oranges at the same time. I don't know. I can't juggle anything, but I think that was interesting.
Just give me some. Where's the fruit?
All right. Law Dog 01. Father-in-law filed. It's good to see you, Law Dog. Father-in-law filed a claim for increase for heart attack back in December 21, and nothing so far. I'm hearing they're way behind. He's 71. They are way behind, but we're talking 8 months there. And if you're talking about an initial claim you filed, I'd get on the horn if email whoever you can. If you have a line to the regional office, although that doesn't really help you much anymore, but basically it's VA customer service, I would do that. If he's 71, I would be talking to your congressman. And unfortunately 71 in the regional office or the agency is not considered to be old enough. It used to be 10 years ago 75, and now they had to push that back to 85 because there's so many claims. So yeah, that to me seems stale. Ray Winkle, can you file for TDIU if you have an existing claim in? Ray, not only can you file, you damn well better file, okay? You want that TDIU claim to be part of whatever other claim you have in, okay? Because if you file separate, say that claim's awarded, VA, you then file for the TDIU, they're going to try to give it to you the date that you filed the TDIU. You want that, if you already have a claim in, I'm imagining that it's associated with why you cannot work. And so you want the IU to go back to the date you can't work, because that's going to be serious money left on the table if they try to shortchange it by giving it to you the date of the TDIU. Has the tinnitus disability rating changed? Asked Tavares. Shorter answer is not yet. Longer answer is they're trying to change it. They put out the new reg proposals, that they're trying to get done. There was a just tsunami of comments and questions that basically the VA is going to have to go through of why they change it, but they're still trying to, but it has not changed yet.
Well, it wasn't broken. I mean, that to me tells me why they're changing it. I'm just making it funny. Sorry. I like to change things when they're not broken.
Sissy Girl 99, spine fusion. Hubby has had 4. He's on his way to his 5th spinal fusion. 1 neck, 1 mid back, 2 lower, 5th lower. Also, do I list each claim or do I list them all together? What'd you do, Kerry?
All right, I'm assuming that you want to file one claim if you can. All right, it can have multiple issues in it, but anytime you can, 'cause I tell this to people all the time that file a claim 1 month, another one the next month,
Oh,
another
yeah.
next month. And in today's AMA world, you don't want to do that because your case gets so convoluted and so many ratings in there, trying to track it retrospectively to figure out what the right effective date is for one issue versus another. VA can't do that many things at once in your claim, so they're going to screw something up. It's going to make it harder for even a good representative to go through it. Anytime you can file every issue that you need to file in one application, then do so. But as you would list it on that application, those are separate issues, right? The cervical spine is a separate group of minor joints that make up a major joint that's rated as a cervical spine. Same thing with the lumbar spine. It's rated as a group of minor joints that make up one major joint that's the lumbar spine. Now, nowadays, they'll call it the thoracolumbar spine. So they might put the thoracic spine along with the lumbar spine. That's fine. That's how the rating schedule reads, but under no circumstances should a cervical spine disability be rated in the same line, so to speak, under the same code as a lumbar spine. Those are two separate disabilities. You want to file them on your application as two separate disabilities. You want to list all the residuals of those. If you've got cervical radiculopathy from the neck, you've got lumbar radiculopathy, one or both legs from the low back.
Explain that real quick.
The radiculopathy?
Yeah. Just because not everybody's.
Yeah, so if you've got degenerative disc disease, especially with fusions and things like that, your nerves get pinched. People with low back problems are probably going to have pain down one leg or the other or both legs. It doesn't have to be the whole leg. It might just be the calf. It might be just the hamstring. Everyone's a little different on the severity of the condition. That's the radiculopathy. Okay, that's and you can have it in your arms if your cervical spine nerves are getting pinched. You can have it in your legs. Your thoracic spine, you don't see that as much because there's not as much load weight bearing on the as you're doing things in the military on the thoracic spine. But with the radiculopathy, you that would be a little different. You have to look at what parts of the body is controlled by those specific nerve roots coming off that part of the spine. You might get pain on your side or from a thoracic spine. You might get weird reactions to internal organs if those internal organs are caused by that particular nerve. Okay, and those are very rare, but the radiculopathy is not rare at all. That's very common. So you'd want to list if both arms hurt, you'd want to list that as bilateral upper extremity radiculopathy. If both legs hurt, you want to list that as bilateral lower extremity radiculopathy. Those ratings, while tied to the back, are separate from the back. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I list them as individual issues on one application if you can, and go from there with it.
Great. JD, did CMP review 2020 for 70% PTSD? Stayed same rating. They sent me TDIU paperwork. I just sent it back. I applied for TDIU CMP exam due to PTSD. What's the turnaround time look like? Oh man, what's the 80s song? Turn around, bright eyes. Every now and then, fall apart. In theory, if they sent you the exam's clean, meaning the examiner did what they needed to do and listed everything out, it goes back to the adjudicator, and you should see that within a month. We had Law Dog up there say though that his father-in-law went to an increase for his heart back in December. That's ridiculously long. So hopefully we're still looking at the 3 months that they've been telling all of us. And unfortunately, Law Dog's father-in-law is an outlier, but I would think they'd be able to get that back to you quickly if the exam's good. Okay, good.
I'll say a little advice on that stuff. It's just something that we see. It just takes a lot of experience to see this. If you know you're going to file for TDIU, all right, and you just got a rating, say awarding 70% for mental health disability, just using that as an example, do not wait. As Matt said, if you can file the TDIU claim while the other one's pending, then definitely do so. Well, let's say you don't know about TDIU until you get the rating, and then it does what this gentleman's rating said, and it invites a claim for TDIU. File that thing immediately. One, because you're going to get 100% quicker, obviously that way, but two, for reductions. When we talk about, don't go out there and be filing claims on things that might get reduced unless it's going to really benefit you. Same thing applies for TDIU. If you've got if you've got a 70% rating from 2 years ago, and now today you come in and file for TDIU, they're going to re-examine you. Right now, odds are you're not going to get reduced, but that's an increased rating claim 2 years after you've got your mental health rating. Okay. If you're going to get reduced, it's probably going to happen in that scenario over the scenario where you file it immediately because your exam's recent. Okay. Odds are you're not going to get a second exam a month later. It says, oh, you've gotten tons better. Let's reduce you. So it just small little tactical moves like that. If you can file the TDIU claim quicker to your rating, then do so. That's not meant to scare anybody. It's good practice.
Yeah, and they're not going to tell you that. Kenneth Smith, all right, got the full question back here. Good afternoon. Can you speak to the VA giving compensation for chronic pain? So chronic pain is going to be rated under the mental health criteria. So you're going to need to look at that diagnostic code that lays out what's going on there. So does the chronic pain, cause you to lose sleep? Does it push you away from socializing, or are you in your house? Does the pain lead to bursts of anger? Okay. I find that chronic pain, Kerry just spoke quite a bit to the spinal fusion. It's very likely, and I mean, hopefully not, but you could see the sissy girl, you could see all this problem with your husband, and they could just reduce it to a 20% rating for the lower back and a 10% rating for the spine, for the cervical spine. The ratings they give on the back are absolutely ludicrous. So what do we do? It's like Kerry said, look for the secondary disabilities. One could be, we always look at depression, but chronic pain kind of falls under that same umbrella. And so if that's a problem, if he has chronic pain that causes isolation or causes anger or causes, inability to sleep, he can get a lot high. Just the inability to sleep alone, if you can show that's you could shoehorn that in there and get a 30% rating just for that. So chronic pain, yes. Sorry, Kenneth. The short question is yes, you can get service connected for chronic pain. But that is an add-on claim. We look at almost any other life-altering disability, and I got to tell you, one of them that people overlook a lot is tinnitus. It sounds kind of simple if you look at the fact that the top rating for tinnitus is a 10% rating, but we've had a lot of vets who basically self-isolate because of that, or they don't like to go out in crowds because they can't handle the increased noise. So anything that changes your life and causes you to do things, from a mental health perspective, you should look to apply that. David Bell, is inflammation polyarthritis a presumptive disease for the Gulf War arena? Gulf War vet? Talking to you, Kerry.
I'm sorry, say that again. I'm trying to read a question.
Is inflammation polyarthritis a presumptive disease for Gulf War arena?
That's it depends. I mean, on its face, no. It's not an express presumption, but polyarthritis, the word arthritis is throwing me off there, because a lot of times when you see polyarthritis, you might be talking about a polyarthralgia, which is not necessarily an actual arthritic condition. If it's an algia like neuralgia, arthralgia, that's pain. Okay, arthralgia in the knee is arthritic type pain in the knee, but if your x-ray is normal, then you don't technically have arthritis, right? And arthralgia is a good undiagnosed illness claim. okay, because the term arthralgia is just there to designate that you've got pain in that joint. Now, if it's actual arthritis, polyarthritis, what is the underlying reason for that arthritis? If it's degenerative arthritis, almost always no. It's not going to make a good claim for Gulf War issues. If there's, how you would win that case under Gulf War rules is try to argue that it is a medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom illness of unknown etiology. Now, that might be a little difficult with a form of polyarthritis, but I would say it's not possible. Degenerative arthritis, impossible. It's not going to happen. So keep that in mind. You're splitting splitting hairs there between something that VA might not pick up on. They might just see the word arthritis and go, "No, you can't win that with a Gulf War claim." But if you've got it and it's a multi-symptom issue creating multiple symptoms, it's medically unexplained, meaning they don't know the etiology of it, and that's specific to your case. I said a mouthful there that I'm not going to go into. It can happen, but that's going to be a hard claim.
Living in Mexico, good to see you. Good afternoon, gentlemen from Saltillo, Mexico, about an hour from Monterey. It's been a year since I filed my AMA evidence appeal to the BVA. Do I prepare for at least another whole year or more? I'm going to go with or more. We are not seeing any of these cases, the evidence appeal lane, the hearing appeal lane, and the AMA, and frankly, even the fastest, which is the direct appeal lane. We're not seeing them decide those unless there is a reason to expedite, an advance on the docket is what they call it. And so folks who are just an extreme financial state, or they have terminal illness, or they're over, for the board, you just have to be over 75. If you can't qualify under any of those, then we are dismayed at the waiting period. I mean, we're talking years, because they literally are not getting to those cases, even though they told us they would. They came out and said, put everything in AMA, we'll get this done faster, and then they pulled a 180 on us, and now they're just not touching these cases.
The oldest one that I have, at least I think that I have, is well over, it's not 3 years, but it's over 2.5 years old. When it was filed, the board's own website said about 8 to 10 months for the evidence lane. And that was when we filed it. And Matt's right. It's frustrating as all get out, because it's too late to pull it out of that lane. We don't have a clue when it's going to get looked at. And so anyway.
Bamboo Pandolfi. I'm planning on submitting claims for a few disabilities, including obstructive sleep apnea secondary to an already service-connected orthopedic disability with obesity as an intermediate step. I'm wondering if I should hold off on other claims and submit the OSA claim alone in order to receive a potential faster response prior to the planned regulation change on OSA.
I don't think you'll get a faster response. I mean, just because you submitted alone. What do you think, Matt?
I agree. I mean, I think it's a fascinating way for you to think about that. But I agree. I just don't. They're gonna, they decide in whatever order they decide in, and hope. My hope would be if those other issues are something they would, give you compensation on, that you go ahead and start getting that. But this asthma final ruling could come out tomorrow. It could come out a year and a half from now. We just don't know. So if you have cases or claims you think you can win, I file them all. Carl, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a good approach, linking an ortho condition to sleep apnea by using weight gain as an intermediate. Okay, which is probably about the only way you're going to win related to ortho condition. But I'm just saying that's good strategy. So that's the way you want to approach a claim like that. So good job on that.
Man, I recently had a CMP exam for PTSD secondary to asthma, received a decline and not service connected. My asthma is service connected. Okay.
You say PTSD secondary to asthma?
No, sleep apnea, secondary to sleep apnea. Well, okay, let's see. He says more. At the CMP exam, the CMP examiner spoke to me in a demeaning manner. She told me since I hadn't done the sleep study that I would have to come back after it was done. That didn't happen. Study was done and decision was made. Should you appeal? Yes, I would appeal, and I would say, but this to me is a higher level review, and say the duty to you failed in the duty to assist. This is what I was told by the doctor, and I didn't see the doctor again. I don't know if that one wins, but to me that'd be worth a shot.
I think it would. The duty to assist is the trigger there. You know, if they're gonna look at the sleep apnea claim as a valid claim that they have a duty to assist on, and they're going to get you an examination, that examination should include a sleep study. So it's not your fault you go into the exam that they ordered for you and you have not done the sleep study yet. Unless you just, you know, unless you could do it on your own, you might as well do it. But no, I would say there's a duty to assist for them to set up the sleep study. If
Well, they had the sleep study, but after the exam, and the examiner says, like, you know, I need to see you again after the sleep study.
Gotcha. I got you. Okay.
All right, Carl, I was diagnosed with severe sleep apnea in 18 by my doctor. I filed a claim a couple weeks ago. Do you think the VA will send me to a CMP exam? Carl, you got to show what happened in service to cause that. You got to say, you know, either, you know, you were already having apnetic problems in service that we can have a some kind of buddy statement for, or, you know, secondary is the way most people go. Like we were talking about orthopedic, we talked about PTSD, asthma there. So you got to show what is relating it to service. So that's great that you got a diagnosis, but you definitely would need to show that as far as getting sent to a CMP exam. Even with a doctor's diagnosis and a doctor's letter, I just see they do it anyway. It's kind of like what they do willy-nilly. Okay, and then Bamboo asked about the sleep apnea regulation. It says, will veterans have to submit a claim prior to the regulation change to be grandfathered to the old schedule, old rating schedule? What are your thoughts on this, Kimosabe?
Well, but if I'm understanding the question, then yes, if you submit a claim once the schedule changes, then you are subject only to the change in that schedule.
Yeah.
Your claim going forward. You cannot. That's just the law doesn't work that way. If they've changed it, you file a claim after that point. The only thing applicable to your claim is the law that was in effect when the claim was filed, unless it changes after you file the claim. If it changes after you file the claim's pending, then they're supposed to apply the most favorable version to your claim. If you file afterwards, there's only one version to apply, and that's the one that's in effect.
File. Vincent, if I had a sleep disorder on active duty, can I claim sleep apnea as direct as if it were diagnosed in service? Yes, you do not have to have a diagnosis in service. You have to have a current diagnosis, but not in service. Traveling Terry, I don't see where to ask my questions on the community page. Ephraim, can you throw that in there? So, and just for everybody knows, what we try to do, and I didn't do this time, is to go to the community page and try to pick several questions from that, because not everybody is radio killer and able to get here right on time. And so what we do is look for questions that people have voted up, and then we start with those just so that, that they get their questions asked. Albert Quiros, can I obtain my medical records from my deployments from when I got injured? I also have a fiduciary that I can't get rid of. VA appointed me a fiduciary out of nowhere. First part, deployment records. What do you say, Kerry? The whole C file, or just get the records?
Get the whole C file.
Okay. So you do
yeah, they've got the records, then they're going to be in what they give you, at least it should be.
And what are your thoughts on the fiduciary?
All right. So if you've got a VA appointed fiduciary, there's probably not much you can do about it, unless, if they're abusing your money, or something like that, then you want to report that to VA. Well, let's say none of that's going on. You just have a fiduciary that you'd rather replace with someone else. Do you have a family member that is willing to be your fiduciary that can manage your affairs? that's not that, they have to have somewhat of a decent record. If they're, multiple felonies, things like that, then that's I'm not insinuating that's the case, but I mean, BA is going to look at that when they go to see, is this person eligible to manage your benefits? But you should be able to get that changed. That's an appealable issue these days under Freeman, I think was the case. And so find a family member, find somebody you trust, and try to get VA to accept them as a fiduciary. That'd be about the best advice I think I could give.
Parsons Bradley, he asked this question or mentioned that he had C&P exam for PTSD earlier, and it was a horrible experience. No diagnosis they had, no records. And just makes this statement: my PTSD C&P exam was at a children's clinic. That's a first for me, Parsons, but that's I mean, I don't know how much lower you go. That's pathetic. And I'm sorry, again, you had to go through that, but don't let that stop you from fighting. The real H-Town, I'm currently rated 93%. I recently went to exam for TDIU, also an increase for my sciatica paralysis, bilateral, and urinary frequencies. Afterward, I was scheduled for mental health exams. Any thoughts? I mean, my thought is if you literally are going through all that stuff and you're not rated for mental health, you should be. I mean, that stuff, urinary frequency, the paralysis, bilateral, that changed your life. I mean, that's awful. TDIU telling me you can't work, you've lost your identity as far as what you were able to do earlier. So I think you should be rated. And frankly, if you're rated even 30%, I think maybe you got to be rated 50%, but then you would be bumped up to 100% straight. So you wouldn't even have to worry about IU. So I see it as a good thing, even if you didn't apply for that. Broadcast Dave, I arrived early for my exam to do paperwork. Mentally, I was ready to go in at 2, but they called me in at 1:30. I don't think the exam went well because I was flustered. I don't know what to tell you about that. That's tough. I mean, you need to get a copy of the exam and I guess go from there. Spoon in with Sunshine Homestead. That might be the winner name of today. I'm at C&P exam right now for unemployability. Wish me luck. Wow. Well, best of luck. This was probably 10, 15 minutes ago. So if you're out, let us, well, shit, hopefully you're not out. But if you are out, let us know how it goes. Just be heard SPC. Is it a good thing to have a higher level review sent to the Director of Compensation for extra scheduler TDIU when an error has been discovered? That's an interesting step, Kerry. I mean, we're talking 4.16B here.
It can be viewed as a good thing. I mean, if you have a valid extra scheduler TDIU case.
Yeah.
All right. What's a good way to put this? The board most likely is not going to have first instance jurisdiction to look at that. So if the board remanded it to send it to comp service, that means the board saw enough in the case that it needed a comp service review.
This was straight out of HLR though.
Okay, well, my next sentence was going to be same thing for HLR. If the HLR sees enough in there to send it to comp service, then that's a good sign, because a lot of times you can't get them to send it to comp service. When you're arguing extra scheduler, even with good evidence for extra scheduler, they'll just look at it and go, "Nah, we don't see any evidence that you're truly unemployable at your rating here." So the fact that they're sending it is good. Not only means they see something, but 2, you're not going to have to argue later on appeal if you have to go to the board with this, that they need to remand it just for that purpose, because it adds years to your appeal. That yours is already, it's already going to be taken care of. So the board can overturn a negative finding from compensation service, but they can't overturn one if it's not made. They have to go ask for it to be made. So I look at that as a good sign.
All right, guys, we're jumping into, looks like over an hour here, and there's so many good questions. I'm trying just to go through some of them so I get some more. So I'm going to be going out of line. I apologize to those folks. I am skipping over. Let's see. Well, real quick, mental health claims. To prescribe medication by your psychologist hold a lot of weight. What are your thoughts, Kerry?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Jerry Means. Oh, go ahead.
you see a question by Andy Merle? I think that's
You go ahead and ask it. Yeah, we're trying to get some.
So it says, how can VA deny my claim? I just happened to look up and it's just a good question. How can VA deny my claim for mental health when it was the reason I was forced out on it and didn't have any mental health issues before joining? If they've done that, you need to seek out good representation and appeal that. I mean, just unless there shouldn't be many reasons they should deny that. Doesn't mean there couldn't be any.
Well, the reason they did most likely denied it is they called it a personality disorder.
Yeah.
They said he has a personality disorder. We get out, you cannot be compensated for personality disorder. I have rarely seen in the last 15 years a mental health claim where the veteran was denied due to personality disorder, where the veteran actually had one. It's one of those things where they put it on their discharge papers, they go out, they treat at the VA, and the VA doesn't list it. So yeah, you need to fight that. And unfortunately, I agree with Kerry in that you probably need to hire somebody, because if they're denying you and it's that straightforward of a claim, they're going to say everything and anything you have thereafter is personality disorder, which is rubbish. So, or they'll say the only thing you had in service was a personality disorder. You didn't have depression. Those claims they get me a little upset. All right. Let's see what are the other ones. And Kerry, call out any ones you see that jump out to you.
I only see a few on my little small panel.
All right, Tammy, I have pending MST PTSD claim with the VA, and I requested TDIU together with the claim. Will sending in my Social Security statement help facilitate income verification? It will. Sometimes what happens, this is such a delicate line though. If this claim for PTSD is a service-connected claim, and you're pushing the IU claim and putting it in evidence, sometimes the cart gets before the horse, okay? And if you get a denial on the IU, because that's easy for them to deny if you're not service connected, they're saying, hey, look, you're not service connected, we're going to deny you. So you just got to make sure that if that gets denied, I like to give that denial a couple months. Hopefully the claim catches up on the PTSD side, and then you appeal them both together where you need to. But yes, sorry, your question was, does the SSA statement help? Absolutely, it helps. Is it, controlling on the VA? No, unfortunately, it's not. Okay, go ahead.
I do see a good question here from Austin C. Austin, AUS number 10C. That's interesting. I get ANA currently. I just completed another ANA form for a separate unrelated condition. Should the VA consider the condition separate and pay the higher ANA rate? There could be a lot in that question, but a good question nonetheless. So if the separate condition needs to be service connected, if you're applying for ANA for it, and the ultimate answer is yes, you can get the higher rate. I think you're talking about R1. Matt, jump in here if you think I'm misreading this. R1 is the higher rate of ANA. Okay, if you can't meet the regular rate for ANA, which sounds like you already have, you're not going to meet the higher rate for ANA. But yes, you can have more than one ANA if that makes sense. You could have a mental health disability that leaves you so disabled that you need somebody with you all the time to protect you from the hazards of daily life. You could then, on top of that, have a heart condition and multiple physical disabilities that also physically require you to need ANA because of the daily needs of living. All right, then you have two rates of ANA. Which is L, SMC L is
for either one.
Right.
For one, yeah.
Right. So how you get to the higher rate for ANAs, you look at the SMC rates themselves. Okay, don't think of it as ANA, not just yet. You need two rates between L and N. Okay, obviously two rates of ANA would do that because they're both L. If you have those two rates, you go immediately to O. If you're at O and you need ANA, which here you do because the ANA got you to O, then you go to R1. So that's the easiest way to think about that. Two rates between L and N get you to O. If you're at O and you need ANA, even though A&A got you to O, you go to R1. I think that's what that question's asking.
And if it is, I would probably replay that, guys, about 4 or 5 times. Kerry is an unbelievable expert when it comes to special monthly compensation, especially the higher rates. I've got a cheat sheet that I have somewhere on my computer that I look at every time when it comes to those, because it's just so, it's so hard, and it's so just, you got to understand the minutia. But it's, you know, if you go from L to R, that's a life-changing a rate change. So it's just something to just think about. All right, here's another one. Kerry loves Agent Orange. Gulfport, Mississippi Agent Orange cases coming from Navy Seabee base. Kerry, have you seen any of those? Or
Gulfport, Mississippi, what kind of claims?
Agent Orange from a Navy Seabee. I guess there's a base, they had a base there.
I've seen plenty of claims from Gulfport. Now, whether they were Seabees or not, I can't recall. But yes, I mean, Gulfport is where all the herbicides were stored prior to them being shipped to Johnston Island to be burned at sea. So yeah, at one point between, they were first stored at Kelly Air Force Base, at SAMA. I don't remember what SAMA stands for off the top of my head. Anyway, we won't go there. And then part of the way through Vietnam, they were moved to Gulfport. And so that's where they were shipped from to go to Vietnam. It's where they were housed. There was a big section of Gulfport that all the barrels were placed. There was lots of leaks at Gulfport. So those are valid herbicide claims. VA is going to fight it because they've had people come in and say, it didn't leak. Or, it leaked only 5 feet, or, I'm animating that. It's bullshit. So they leaked all over the place. They leaked all the way out into the freaking ocean by some reports. So yes, those are good herbicide claims. You need to know where your service was on Gulfport so you can show that in relation to where the herbicides were stored. There's evidence out there online on where those herbicides were stored on Gulfport. And so, that's basically it.
Basically it. He knows a lot about Agent Orange too and loves those questions. All right, so I see Combat Craig has been in the house for a while. For y'all still on here, I just to kind of teaser, Combat Craig and I have been talking and trying to get together and maybe working on something, and we think we might have something to talk about together with this PACT Act and how it's going to hopefully change so many things for the better. So be aware on Craig's channel. I guess we'll announce on our channel as well. But that should be hopefully coming soon, where we get a chance to talk and probably cause some mischief. All right, let's see.
I went in on that one.
We figured out 3-way. We might be able to do that. Let's see. I'm sorry, guys. We're trying to just jump around here. So Leon said, I am 100% P&T for mental health. Can they reduce me for not continuing to see my VA psychiatrist? It's hard on me when I go. They cannot. I mean, it's not like that's the first reason. However, if you don't have records of treating, they come back and say, hey, we're going to review you, and there's no records of treatment, that gives the CMP exam so much more weight, because they can say, look, I just saw you. You haven't been seen in 5 years, and this is what I see. Clearly, you're better. Whereas if you do have treatment records that show, man, you're having trouble, or your trouble staying the same, that, that's strong evidence for you. I would, I'm giving medical advice is not really what I should be doing, but I would consider if going weekly is hard for you, going bi-weekly is hard, maybe consider stretching that out every month, maybe every 6 weeks. But having those records in there, I just think it's a good thing to do. I'm paranoid, but that's kind of my thought. All right, so let's get a couple more of these. Just interesting to clear this up. Jay Reeves, do you have any statistics showing if the veteran's better off the VA examiner or with the contract medical examiner? Is there a higher rating for either? Well, yeah, Kerry's shaking his head. No, but you really can't get a CAP exam done by the VA anymore. They have just wholesale shipped that out for other folks. So unfortunately, that's not really an option. Rotund Bantam, I was denied high blood pressure secondary to anxiety because the examiner stated she could not find any studies connecting the two. What's my best option? Well, first of all, just kind of going back to the basics, you got to show something happened in service, or there's a disability upon which we're going to piggyback. There's a current diagnosis, and then we can have a nexus for the two, okay? If your diagnosis is high blood pressure, that's not something the VA recognizes as a disability. You need to have hypertension. And just because you have high blood pressure as a diagnosis doesn't mean you have hypertension's not in there. It's just something you need to talk to your doc about. So that's the best option I would see.
And let me add something real quick to that, Matt, is VA's got defined criteria for hypertension, right, in their rating schedule. So they want to verify that you've got the hypertension rather than just, like Matt said, the high blood pressure. But you can use that tool too, right? If you know your blood pressure readings and you see that they satisfy the VA's own criteria for hypertension, then you can advocate for yourself using that, using their own rules against them.
Okay, let's see. Michael Anders, I received SMC back in 2019, but have 100% permanent total rating for TBI. I filed for SMCT in May. Does the current rating of SMCS help my T claim? Doesn't hurt it. I don't know what your S is for, but yeah, it ain't gonna hurt it. All right, it's that time. Good to hear from you. I'm gonna bust you a little bit here. Hi, Matt and Terry. Terry, how can I get in touch with you? Trying to locate my unit records from the archives down at what is this? USMC, LAI, RICO. That's actually Kerry's twin brother is Terry, but I don't know. So Kerry, if that's something, his email for everybody who wants it, I think is on. It's on the website under our profiles. All of our emails are up there. I'll say that. So that's something you could hopefully get from him there. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Mine diverted to Matt, so he gets all my emails. Yeah, I'm not sure I got the whole question, but yes,
he's looking for unit records from his Marine state. It's LAI RICO. I haven't heard of that station. I'd imagine it's Recon, but it just says RICO.
Unit records, not your personnel records.
That's what he's looking for, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What's a good the off the cuff quick answer to that, we're out of time, is if you've got a claim that the claim requires those records, you make sure you communicate that to VA that, hey, here's the unit I was in, give them the full unit name, when you were there, make it part of your claim that you're pleading with VA to obtain those records to support your claim. Once you put VA on notice that there's federal records that will support your claim, they have an unlimited duty to assist to get those records, short of them coming to the conclusion that it's just futile. Okay, so they have to look once you tell them. If they don't look and you've got somebody helping you or a good representative, then we can use that information to fight for you because they didn't look.
And I'd consider that an easy higher level review, remand or not, whatever, have them do over again, because exactly, the more you got to be specific. You got to say this unit, these dates, this location, or these locations, and go from there.
Because VA can understand this, VA can get unit records much easier than you can.
Yeah.
Much easier than we can. All right. They've got to tie straight to DOD. They can get those records. And so put them on the hook. It's their job.
All right, Bonnie, June, just a couple more questions here. Husband is Blue Water vet. He was sent to an ophthalmologist. Doctor said he has diabetic retinopathy and cataracts. Should these be separate claims / ratings, or will they be lumped into his diabetes claim? Folks, great question here. And this applies to everyone when things are getting lumped, okay? So, Bonnie, you need to look at the code for retinopathy, and then the code for diabetes, and see if there's overlapping symptomatology. If the retinopathy doesn't meet a rating, meaning it's a 0% rating, then they are going to just tuck it in, okay? If it meets a rating, it should be separated out, okay? This is the thing with diabetes. Diabetes itself is a bad is bad. But the reason why it's bad is that it causes all these other disabilities, problems with the legs, problems with the kidney, problems with the arms, problems with your heart. So you need to make sure that they are separated out if they have, a rateable disability. All right. And Todd Wyndham saying chronic disability syndrome is under mental health, ? Makes no sense. I have it, and it's a bad deal that I've never claimed it. And Todd, that's what really kind of stinks. The VA doesn't necessarily help you on filing what all you should file, but I'd go ahead and file now and go from there. All right, so let's see, couple more here. Hobby, good to see you again. Just want to say thank you. Currently at 90% following your guidance. Last year at this time I was at 0. Thank you for all you're doing. That's great to hear. That's a great win. Interesting. Philip Sage, welcome back. Are veterans who process gear returning from the first Gulf War subject to exposure from the residual chemicals left on sleeping bags, tents, vests, and associated gear? Oh man, what do you think about that, Kerry?
I'll make sure I understand that. Can you read that one more time?
I'll read it slowly for you. Are veterans who processed gear returning from first Gulf War, so I imagine Philip was it stateside, subject to exposure from residual chemicals left on sleeping bags, tents, vests, and associated gear?
I'm afraid the answer to that is a big no.
I got to say, Philip, we've tried those claims also with Agent Orange, with helicopters coming back, with Jeeps coming back. I've had no luck. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I see the logic.
And I understand the question mentioned Gulf War I. All right, so that relates to 3.317 in the regulations, which is the Gulf War regulations. VA gets this wrong all the time. You guys should not get it wrong. There is no requirement for exposure for Gulf War vets. Okay, because VA doesn't know everything that Gulf War vets were exposed to. So that's not pertinent to this question because you're talking about people coming back from the Gulf War. So I'm assuming you didn't go, but it sort of applies because people who were there, you don't have to show exposure. For chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel, all that stuff. Those are presumptive conditions based on your service in the Gulf, not your exposure to something in the Gulf. Right? If you were exposed to something specific and you need to file a direct service connection claim, then that takes out the realm of 3.317 under the Gulf War rules. So there's differences there. So a lot of people think you have to be exposed to something in the Gulf to file a Gulf War claim. That is not the case. I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Let's kind of last one here. It's a couple of things going on, but one I think will interest you, Kerry. Just a vet not looking for disability, 74 and healthy, but looking for reimbursement if I ever needed. Lived outside the US for 9 years and have benefits if needed in Houston. I will be in Panama. Okay, let's give it on some more. I got 2 bullets in me from 56 years ago, but no problems. 1 AK in the right kidney. When I turned 65, VA told me to get care on Medicare B and pay other 70% of, pay other 20% of my service-connected injuries. Okay, let's see. He keeps on going. VA treated my dad for lung cancer in both lungs for the last 6 years of his life, except he had lost his right lung in World War II, plus the autopsy of his left lung was not clear, malpractice. All right. Ron, what was interesting to me, and I'd like Kerry to speak to a little bit, is about getting 2 bullets in you 56 years ago, but no problem. What do you think about that? And then 1 in the kidney. Kerry, what are your thoughts there?
I'm not sure I understand the nature of the case or the question.
Well, he had, sorry, some of those things, Ron, were a little bit. There's a lot going on there, but I think the focus from what I'm seeing, what pops out to me, was getting shot twice. Looks like in Vietnam with one. It didn't even look through and through. It looked like it's stuck in the kidney.
So if I'm understanding that right, and there's no compensation for that, and the question is that correct? And I'm assuming a little bit there. No, that's not correct. If you've got a bullet in your kidney, odds are that kidney's got problems. Before it could reach the kidney, it had to go through your abdominal wall. That is a through and through gunshot wound. Most people don't think of it like that because you think of it through and through. There's an exit wound and an entry wound, where it went through one leg and out the other side of the leg. It's not the case with abdominal muscles. All right, you've got the set in front. If it goes through and into your abdomen, it's a through and through gunshot wound. And there are minimum ratings for that kind of stuff. If it's stuck in an organ, there could be an explosive effect that required, debridement or something like that. The fact that you've got two of them, it just makes that all the more. Now, this wasn't the same question as the lung?
He was saying that was about his father in World War II, but his father since passed. I mean, I agree, Ron. Like you 10% minimum for the one, let's say the one that didn't hit the kidney, because it again was probably a through and through if it was an AK. And then with the kidney, you might not notice any problems, but I bet you if you had your labs done, your labs would come up with some elevated kidney problems. And if that's the case, that's a 60% rating by itself. Okay, so you might be saying, hey, I'm fine, that's great. You don't manifest any problems, but kidneys are fragile, just like any other organ. And if you get part of it shot off, that's something you need to look at, because again, you served our country, you served in combat, you deserve those benefits. You are entitled, is the better word, for those benefits. So
he mentioned something about his dad with the World War II injury. Now, I just want to add this. I don't know if your grandmother's still alive or anything. If there's a dependent from there alive, something raised a red flag with me there.
Okay.
That one lung was taken out because of injuries in World War II. Then you had another lung problem that was cancerous or something like that. Hopefully I'm understanding that scenario correct. So you've got a lung problem from a non-service connected condition, your only lung that you got left, because the first one was gone from a combat injury. And the second one was gone eventually from cancer. 3.383 paired organs and extremities. If they did not apply that correctly back then, you might be looking at a CUE there. If there's a dependent to file it for. So if there isn't, then I'm afraid that would be way too late. But if your grandmother's alive or something like that, that might be worth at least looking into. But she can't do a CUE in her own standing. Point is, don't forget about paired organs and extremities. 3.33 is one of my favorite regulations. It's very rarely recognized, very rarely used, but when it is used and can be used, it changes a rating from night to day.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much, guys and girls. Thanks so much for tuning in today. It's wonderful being back. Appreciate Kerry taking time to do this with me. Again, we didn't get to all the questions, and I wish we could. But if you have a question and you want to put on the community page, I think Ephraim put that up somewhere how to do that. But if you put that up there, and we basically look at the ones who get voted up, telling us that these are the ones that really should be answered, or ones that the community would like answered, and then ones that we just see and think, wow, this could be a good teaching tool just for any claim. Those are what we look for. So till next week, have a great day, and we will look to talk to you soon.